Allie?
Hey, Thad, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm really excited about our first live broadcast and some of the things we're going to be going over today. So I think it's going to be good. It's exciting.
Absolutely. So for everyone who doesn't know, and hopefully for those of you who registered and are watching live right now, this is our very first kitchen and bath business brief. And this is going to be our monthly live stream that is going to be discussing all of the top marketing, sales, and process information for kitchen and bath businesses across the US and even globally. So Thad, before we get started, why don't you tell the audience who you are and what you do for the kitchen and bath industry?
That's a good question, Allie. I've been trying to figure that out. I actually worked at Ryco Kitchen and Bath for about 30 years, and that's where I got my background in the kitchen and bath business. And now I have a couple other businesses that I don't work there anymore for the last 4 years. And so we have, like a buying group, we have a bunch of other services, and then software. Those are our main focuses now.
So in terms of what you specialize in helping kitchen and bath businesses with, tell us a little bit about your experience, because you have quite a bit of it. I know you're a very humble, modest guy, but that is really great at what he does. So just tell them a little bit more about the specific things that you help businesses like this overcome.
Sure. And all the dealers that I've worked with in the past, my first step is to get in there and understand their business model, how their P&Ls are set up, ask whether they have key performance indicators in place. If not, we do that, structure the P&L, and then focus on all the metrics they have within their business and what we need to do to start improving those. So it all funnels down to the bottom line. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's so important, the things that you're doing, because as I've seen from the marketing side, those are often the issues that prevent kitchen and bath businesses from growing, even if they have a large number of leads or a large number of prospects that are thinking about buying. If they don't have those processes, if they don't understand their numbers, if they don't have a good sales system, then ultimately it's not going to turn into revenue. So today, what we're going to be covering is something very fitting for January. We're going to be talking about planning and really those KPIs, or those key performance indicators. So Thad's going to start us off talking a little bit about what you need to know in terms of those key performance indicators. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how that plays into the marketing and how you can actually plan the first 3 months of the year pretty quickly and easily to give you a very strong guide to get you through Q1 with a really clear focus and hopefully some amazing results. So Thad, why don't you go ahead and get us started?
I will. Thank you. So here you see the business brief. Ali, can you see the screen?
It's not showing.
No, I can't see the presentation just yet. If you guys want to take a second to pull that up, that would be awesome. While he's getting that up, do you want to tell the audience just what KPIs actually are? You and I have had the discussion several times that a lot of people simply don't know the abbreviation or what that really means.
Yeah, KPIs are key performance indicators. They're the things within your business that you want to measure that show things like, your productivity, how well your business runs when you're measuring things like margin erosion, which is a big player in the kitchen and bath business, or closing ratios. There's a number of KPIs, and it really depends on the business of what are the most important things to track. Most businesses, I recommend that they don't have more than 3 at a time. Maybe 4 at the most, because if you get into having, 8 key performance indicators, then it really kind of spreads your resources around of where you can focus your time to improve one of them. So
I think that is a great definition. Looks like you've got your PowerPoint up. So yeah, take it away, Thad.
Okay. So I'm going to run through the first part is the P&L structure. And introducing metrics into your business model. As Ali mentioned earlier, one of the things that I find when I'm working with dealers is when I'm asking about what they're measuring, most of the time it's just the bottom line, and maybe don't have their P&L structured in a way where they can look at them, and then, like within our group, we compare what the benchmarks are out there, so you can understand better, like where you fall. Are you average, above average, and then that kind of gives you some clear guidance as to where, what are the things that you want to work on. Creating a way to track this. This is we really have to lean on technology, because if you are doing it with manual processes, the chances are that after a while you're just going to get tired of doing, creating these numbers to look at, and you really want to try to seek some way of automation that will help you. The easier and less time consuming is, the higher the probability that you'll continue to make sure those numbers are available, like in a dashboard where you can look at them and they can immediately tell you how well you're doing in every category. So can you get in there? Because this isn't working. So on the first slide here, this is the structure for a P&L. And this is everything above the line. And you can see this total sales were just, almost 1.6 million. And the thing that you want to do when you're structuring your P&L is that for everything that you're selling on the top line up there, you need to have something that is parallel to that in your cost of goods sold. I know a lot of people lump sum sometimes when they're quoting customers. They'll pull kind of everything together and do one number. But when you get into recording it into your accounting or whatever you're using, QuickBooks, you want to make sure that they're broken out, because you want to keep a tight rein on where the margins are falling. Like, I've been to places and, we started breaking this thing out, and labor is like one of the ones that you look at and you're like, wow, your labor costs actually match your labor sales, and you're making 0 margin or 5 margin on it. Well, that's an eye opener, and that kind of gives you some direction as to finding out what is causing that. So this is a great way to set it up. If anybody ever needs any help, you can email me and we can do it, along with I'm going to show you the expense model. The other thing that's nice is you can end up where your margin blend is and what your goal was compared to where the margins are coming in. So in expenses, I break these out into 7 different categories. And again, a lot of times when I'm looking at P&Ls, it just lists out all the expenses on there. But I think the idea is that if you can group them into these categories, then you can really dive in and look at the percentage of sales for each one of these expenses and where it should be falling. I've seen, marketing real high. Another one that I've seen, which is your biggest expense for a dealer, is your direct selling cost. That's all your salespeople, your support people. If you have a field guy that's out there measuring, they're all combined into that. And I've seen numbers up to like 18% when it really should be 12%. And then that's a reflection of, where your productivity is falling. So I'm sure that Allie has some feedback on what I put in there in the marketing budget. 2%. I used to have 1 in there, but there's so many people that are going online these days to find information, and websites are so much better in engaging customers that we've upped that number to 2%. And then you have your miscellaneous expense, which is another category that just kind of combines all the leftover stuff. And that usually runs around 3%. You can see your direct selling cost coming in at 12, and G&A at a 3.5. And you can see the other ones. Like the rent model is really important these days. Everybody talks. I get a lot of questions about bricks and mortar and whether is it worthwhile like staying with bricks and mortar. And my answer is absolutely. I think you need to have a presence in your market, but you don't need a 5,000 or 7,000 square foot showroom because it's very costly. And on top of that, I think it's also becoming confusing for customers when there's 45 displays in a showroom. So I really like to see it at 2,000 square feet or less. That's a lot less cost as far as displays and replacements. And then the most important thing is if you're competing with online, how much are you adding to your expense model by having bricks and mortar? And I like to keep that about 2%. And then I've also added another category, which is technology. I've broken that out on its own because that is probably going to become a bigger part of the budget, as we move forward, and how you're going to be able to leverage that to make your business better. Allie, did you have any remarks or questions, or what did you think about my marketing budget?
I think it looks good. So ultimately, I usually suggest anywhere between 5% all the way up to 12% of the budget. It really just depends on where somebody is in their growth plan, how aggressive they want to get. I definitely think that it's very important to focus on some of these numbers. And with those, KPIs that you're talking about, that's a very easy segue into the marketing KPIs that you really want to focus on. So there are several different things that you could be looking at when it comes to your marketing analytics. And what I've found is that most people are looking at the absolute wrong numbers. So we have a lot of people who maybe they have somebody managing their organic social media content, and they'll say, hey, here's a report that we get from our social media manager. Can you tell me if this looks good? Can you tell me if this is working? So my first response is typically, this sheet isn't going to tell you if it's working. Your sales are going to tell you if it's working, because ultimately the goal of marketing and advertising, it's not just to get likes or clicks or views, it's to get real sales. Otherwise, there is no point in investing your hard-earned money into that form of advertising or marketing. So the first thing I want you to understand is that you want to try and get rid of this assumption that you need to be focusing really heavily on reach and impressions and clicks and likes and engagements. And while all of those things do play a role and they are things that you want to monitor, they're not going to produce sales. Those are not the actual numbers you want to focus most specifically on. So the first thing that I like to do with people is really walk them through what their numbers are for their actual business in terms of how much can you profitably afford to spend to acquire a customer. What is that customer worth to you in their lifetime? What is a single purchase typically worth to you? What's your profit on that purchase? What is your conversion rate from a scheduled call or scheduled appointment to a sale? What's your typical cost per lead? And if you're not currently paying for advertising that produces leads, you may not really know that. Sometimes people will be paying for something like TV advertising, and they actually have no idea if that TV advertising is actually producing customers. They're hesitant to stop it because they don't want to lose business that they think might be coming from that TV advertising. But we've actually tested this in the past. We've had really large TV schedules. We've cut several of those channels. Sales remained exactly the same. And so what you find in doing something like that is, we've been paying a lot of money for something that we think is producing results, but it's not actually doing anything for our sales. And when we're paying for that, we're looking at those KPIs such as, percent of share and households and gross rating points and impressions. And it doesn't matter if it's not working for your sales. So I'm going to give you a quick little slideshow that'll show you some of the primary things that we first want to look at when we're going through this process. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. And we will pull this up right here. So the first thing you want to know is, where do your sales actually take place? For kitchen and bath businesses specifically, they could start on the phone. They always clearly have to happen in person. But because of that, you could do phone call bookings or in-person appointment bookings, whichever is the best first step for your leads. So if it is in person always, you want to make sure you're measuring how many booked appointments you're getting. If it is more of a walk-in scenario, like you're a retailer, then you definitely want to be tracking your foot traffic or some type of voucher or promo redemption if you're doing anything like that in your marketing. If you are doing phone calls, definitely booked calls is ideal, but you also want to be tracking those inbound calls as well. And then online, if you're selling anything online directly, maybe it's some sort of design package. I don't know a ton of kitchen and bath businesses that are selling directly online, but you would want to track those sale conversions. And what are the costs associated with those? So what's your cost per booked appointment? What is it per entry into your, kitchen and bath showroom? What is it per booked call or sale? So those are the first things to get clear on, because without those events, sales can't happen. So that has to be the primary focus for you. Then we want to take a look at some of these critical numbers that are going to lead to these sales events. So that's going to be your cost per lead. I often get the question of, what's a good cost per lead? And the problem with that statement is that it's not going to be one blanket answer. There's no way to generalize this across every market in the United States or in the world. There's a lot of kitchen and bath businesses or just local businesses in general that might do the same thing, but they serve different types of clientele. So you might be a more value-based kitchen and bath business, or you might be a very high-end kitchen and bath business. And so what you're selling has a significant price difference. It's a significantly different audience, and you're living, in a different market. So I can't give two people with those incredible differences the same cost per lead. But what I can tell you is that if you work backwards from what do you actually receive in terms of customer lifetime value or cost per purchase from your clients, and how many of those leads do you typically convert? What's your margin on those? We can get to a number that is your maximum spend per lead. That is your cutoff point. So the goal is not to get to that point. It's to stay underneath that number and work it down as far as you possibly can, but with realistic expectations and a very clear point in which you say, at this cost per lead, it's no longer profitable for me to run this campaign. We do the same thing for scheduled calls or appointments. So scheduled calls typically can be done at a slightly lower cost than scheduled appointments, but that's not always the case. Most of the marketing campaigns that we do focus on booked calls and booked appointments, where that lead is self-scheduling. You can still reach out to these other leads that don't self-schedule and get those people to schedule that appointment, which I highly recommend. But ultimately, the costs are going to vary based on if you are doing phone or in person, and if you do have someone following up with those additional leads. That's going to drive down your cost significantly. So it's something I really recommend. But ultimately, these are the numbers that you really want to focus on first and foremost, because your cost per click simply doesn't matter if you have no idea what your sales numbers actually are. Once you have these things together, you're going to be much more empowered to make wise decisions when it comes to your marketing and also just your business as a whole. What I see a lot of the time is that very intelligent business owners, they simply have never been educated on these types of things. And so they are living in the dark when it comes to making those decisions. They'll shut off campaigns that are working well. They'll increase budgets on campaigns that are doing absolutely nothing for the revenue of their business. And they also have this level of anxiety when it comes to marketing because they just don't know what's good, what's not good, where's the point that I need to shut this off, and where's the point where I should be celebrating because I'm doing really well. This also ties in to tracking your leads and tracking your sales across every stage of the process. So this comes back to having a CRM or a customer relationship management software, and a sales pipeline that you're actually utilizing every single day. If you can get all of your leads into one place and really break down the sales process that they're going to be going through, and then track each person through that sales process, your eyes are going to be completely open in terms of where people are getting hung up in the process. You're going to be able to see if people are being followed up with effectively. You're going to see their objections. You're going to see how long it takes your average customer to close. You're going to see how much they're closing for and what your return on investment is. Without tracking those things, you are simply guessing, and guessing is not based on reality. And that's what we want to do with everything in our business, is base our decisions off of real factual data, not assumptions, not guesses. And even if you have to make educated guesses on some of these numbers in the beginning, they should not remain educated guesses. As you go through these processes and you start to track things, you then come back and you update them to reflect reality, real, solid data. So once you have something like this in place where you know your numbers, you've got those KPIs that you want to focus on, what happens next? Where should you be investing your marketing dollars, your time, your effort? So we're going to go through a quick worksheet right now, and this is going to be for the 3-month plan. So all of these things that I have are for a marketing strategy challenge I recently did, which if you guys are interested in getting some of these, just drop a comment and let me know, and I'd be happy to share them. But we're going to be doing the 3-month overview and just walking you through what this looks like. And then we'll also talk about where specifically you may want to be putting your dollars. So this 3-month plan is a very simplistic marketing strategy. We also have a simplistic 1-page annual plan. And the goal for this is to make it easy to read, easy to understand, easy to share with your team. We don't want to overcomplicate it. So the first thing to do is figure out what's the time period that we're planning for. And in this case, it's going to be for Q1. We're already 21 days into Q1 as of now, but that doesn't mean that you're behind. You essentially could start today and still come out really, really strong in terms of your Q1 goals, but you just want to make sure that you actually have those goals. You have a plan and you're not just winging it every single day. The next thing that we're going to figure out is what the theme of this quarter is going to be. So I learned this from Ryan Dice himself. He's the owner of Digital Marketer, and he loves to theme his quarters. And so this is something that we started doing, and it's worked out really, really well. And it makes a lot of fun for the team as well. So even if it's just you, if you're a solopreneur, or if it's just 1 or 2 people, you can still do this, but it really gives the entire company something that they can rally behind, this shared goal. And a theme could be something such as staying in business. That's something that we have talked about over the last several months. Depending on the challenges that you've experienced this year, your theme may simply be to survive to Q2. Hopefully that's not the position you're in, but it's understandable if that's the case. And so there is no shame in saying, we just want to hang on. You also could have a theme of, fortifying your business. So looking for those things inside of your business that could completely bring you down. Where do you need to protect yourself? Is it building your email list? Is it getting some legal support? Is it hiring key team members? What is it that will really protect your business? Maybe it's growth in terms of a specific type of project. You really want to explode one product or service. Maybe you want to launch a new product or service. It could be something like exposure, where you're really looking for a lot of PR opportunities and simply getting the name out there to as many people as possible. So while that may sound super vague and without KPIs, you'd be right. And that's fine. So this is more of a subjective part of the plan. And now what we want to do is we want to move into the objective numbers. So what I really hate is subjective things that have no objective references, because that is simply left up to the imagination. You could have 10 different people that all have 10 different opinions of what that theme or that word really means. And that's not going to unite the team behind this goal. So you want to go in and say, what are the metrics that would actually help us to achieve this theme that we have selected. So for instance, when I went through this for myself, we said that exposure was going to be the theme of Q1. And so what are those metrics that play in to my exposure goals? So one of them is maximizing my Dream 100 list. So it could be conversations and opportunities with my Dream 100 partners. It could be podcast bookings. It could be podcast guests on my show. It could be PR features in publications or websites. It also could be hitting a certain amount of downloads for my podcast, certain number of views or subscribers for my YouTube channel. So there's a lot of different things that could go into that, but you really want to identify what that means to you. So the reason I'm choosing exposure is because I already have a lead generation system that works. I don't need to worry about getting more leads or getting more appointments or closing more sales. Those things have a system. This is something that leads to that system that will end up producing the results I want to see. But if you don't yet have a system like that, that could definitely be something to focus on, and really just customer acquisition. So when I talk about a marketing system, I typically call it a customer acquisition system, because most marketers that are doing digital or traditional marketing, they don't see it that way because that's not what they're actually helping someone with. They're giving them an impression or they're getting them a lead, but they don't take it through to the end to help them actually close that sale, which again is the only thing that matters. So once we've got those key metrics, we want to identify where we are today versus where we want to be. That number is going to be the gap. So if I currently have, 10 podcast bookings in a 3-month period, my goal is 20. Well, then my gap is 10. So you're just going to do the math there. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to focus on our strategic pillars. So we went from theme, which is subjective, to our metrics and our KPIs, which is objective. Then we've got strategic pillars, which are back to being subjective. So these are more of these core pillars that are going to make up this theme. So I've already mentioned a couple of them actually when going through my key metrics. I've got podcasts. We've got Dream 100, which is another type of marketing strategy. We also have PR, and then content creation and engagement. So those are going to be some of my 5 strategic pillars. Now we're going to come up with these key initiatives that fit within those strategic pillars. So for instance, if podcast is one of the things that I want to focus on, a key initiative could be daily outreach to targeted individuals for podcast guests and promotion. One of those things could be monthly mailings and outreach to my targeted list of Dream 100 opportunities. Another one could be potentially hiring a PR company so that they can get me on all of the features and all of the websites and, stations, whatever it is, that are going to help me achieve those goals. So just because it's a key initiative doesn't mean that I have to personally do it or that we have to do it in-house. It just means that it needs to be done by someone. Content and engagement, that could be doing a 5-day challenge once per quarter. That could be doing 1 live video per week in my Facebook group. So those are key initiatives. We're taking those strategic pillars and now we're actually putting very clear initiatives in place that we can track. The final things that you want to do for this 3-month plan is say, okay, who's the point person on these initiatives? We already have identified the gap between where we are and the goal that we want. We've already identified the things that we want to focus on really clearly. Now we want to say who within the organization is going to be responsible for those things. So again, doesn't mean they have to personally be implementing them, but it does mean that they are responsible for keeping track of it, for doing the outreach to find someone to help, of reviewing those pieces of data or those analytics provided to make sure that that person's on track, and that they are responsible for getting all of the elements together to be able to make that happen. So do not underestimate the power of giving responsibility to people on your team and saying, I may not know how to do this thing, and you may not know how to do this thing, but I'm tasking you with the responsibility of learning how to do this thing or finding the person who can already. When you give somebody on your team responsibility like that and you actually check up with them on those key initiatives every single week, they're going to be excited because they're going to feel like they are contributing. Like they are the person who's got the answers, that they're able to learn something new and then share it with you. It's also going to free up your time because you don't have to be the one doing all of the research or doing all the prep work. If you don't feel like you have people on your team that can handle that, then it might mean you don't have the right people on your team. So be willing to let go of some of the control and assign some of these tasks and initiatives to people that are around you and let them be responsible and hold them accountable to that. The last thing you want to do is set deadlines. So we already know that this is a 3-month plan. With the 3-month plan, we still want to have shorter deadlines or milestones for these key initiatives to keep everyone on track. What you don't want is to end up in the last week of the quarter and have not checked on where these things are and then say, okay, everyone, I hope you're done with your key initiatives by next week. That's not really, I wouldn't say it's not fair to them. They should probably be doing it on their own. But as a way to make sure that people are really on the right path, set some of these milestones, set some of these deadlines. And truthfully, whoever you assign as the point person, they can do this. They can set those deadlines and those milestones based on their research in terms of how much time it should realistically take. I personally feel like 3 months is enough time to do just about anything, as long as your goal is not completely unrealistic. And because we're not talking about a yearly revenue goal, we're talking about goals that can be tracked, that are part of a larger grand scheme that we can break down into smaller parts and pieces so that it feels a lot more manageable. So there's a lot that goes into planning for your marketing. But this is definitely the very first step that you want to take. Otherwise, you're just going to be winging it, and that is never going to lead to really great results. So in terms of now you've got this plan, what should you actually be focusing on in terms of where you're spending your time, where you're spending your money, and what those results might be? So me personally, my business is Allie Bloyd Media. I work with local businesses of all types, but I've focused very heavily on kitchen and bath. For many years, I have extensive experience in the industry, and it's something that I'm really passionate about. And for the kitchen and bath industry, we do a lot of Facebook ads, Instagram ads, content marketing, and list building. Those things have worked very, very well. And we do it from an educational standpoint to be able to really create a new pool of buyers that are educated about what you do. They understand the process before they even get to you. So not necessarily speaking from a bias because that's what I do, but that is the direction I guide people to. We do a lot of other things, but we focus there because it works best. And so if I were a kitchen and bath dealer, I would be very interested in looking at these platforms. Ultimately, we try and do this in a way that isn't reliant upon the platforms. And what I mean by that is we have a system that's developed where any platform can be the ad platform, but the system itself remains the same. So let's say Facebook were to poof, disappear, a year from now. Your efforts won't go to waste if you do this the right way. You'll simply shift to whatever advertising platform you want to shift to, knowing that you have a complete lead generation system that's working for you. But right now, Facebook and Instagram ads are providing the lowest cost leads, quality leads that are scheduling calls, they're scheduling appointments, and they're turning into paying customers. And definitely what I want for my clients and for the people that I help educate about this. So if you are still looking for a place to put your money, that is a place that I would highly encourage you to look. I do know a lot about the other options that are available to kitchen and bath businesses, and trade shows probably not happening right now. Live events is something we've focused on for a long time, but obviously a lot of people aren't doing live events right now. So when that kind of comes back as a possibility, we'll definitely do a training on that because it's very much worth your time to hear about it. TV is something that you could do if you want to. But I would say if you're going to put your money there, you need to find a way to track it by promoting a very specific offer that has a very specific call tracking number, appointment booking link, or special promotion code so that you can actually look back and see, did we get real sales from this marketing platform? Lots of other things we could talk about. Pay-per-click is a great one. However, it's only going to reach a small part of the market that's already searching for what you do, which is another reason that I really like social media, because you can build those relationships. You can really share this exciting content that drives people to want to start a home remodeling project. So I know we've covered a lot today, probably gonna, end it right there on my end. For those of you who've been asking about the sheets, I'll absolutely share those in the comments so that you can grab those. And if you are interested in going through that 5-day planning challenge, I'll drop a link to the Facebook group so that you can check those out. They're still in the group. The replays are up. And then all the documents that I showed in that folder are going to be available there. So Thad, do you have anything to add after this? I know I've kind of been on a little tangent, but thanks for bearing with me.
No, it's all good information. We'll have to talk offline as far as the marketing budget, so I get a better understanding. I'm very stingy when it comes to expenses that are out there, but also needing to realize exactly what that ROI looks like is really important when you're planning on how much you're going to spend and what that can turn into as far as sales for you.
You're so right. And honestly, that's something that a lot of people struggle with, because until they have a trackable marketing system that shows them a return on investment, you feel like it's an expense, not an investment. You feel like you're giving your money away, and it's got this anxiety and it's, nerve wracking. But when you can actually see with your own eyes what's being produced from your advertising campaigns, you can see the sales that are coming in. It gives you that confidence to say, I want to spend as much as I possibly can as long as I retain these percentages and these metrics, because I know that it's working. So it gives you the ability to kind of turn up the dial, so to speak. Or if you get really busy, you can pull it back. We have that happen to our clients and students. They'll turn on their ads, and depending on the setup of their team, they may get to a point where they're taking all the calls and appointments that they can. So they've got to slow it down for a little bit, and then they can turn it back up maybe when they hire someone else. So we just had a client who hired a new appointment setter a couple of months ago to take care of the influx of leads they were getting. Now she's hiring new designers as a result of these ad campaigns. And now she's ready to increase her budget even more because she's got that infrastructure there to be able to handle it. But the good news is that even if you do come to a point where you're getting too busy and you've got to slow it down, it's very easy to do that and then turn it right back up or turn it right back on when you're ready to get those leads or those appointments set again. So really just being able to see this data is very empowering to people. And it does give you the ability to really choose how quickly you want to grow, which is something I feel like most business owners have never really experienced before. And it's a lot of fun. It kind of turns it into a game, at least in my opinion. Like, I'm always trying to beat my score. How low can we go? How many can we get? How many can we close? And it's allowed me with a relatively small team to grow a pretty large business on the back of social media advertising and content creation. But one last thing I'll kind of add on the social media side of this is that a lot of businesses, especially kitchen and bath, I've found, but really all types of local businesses, they confuse organic social media content, such as what you're posting on your page, with social media advertising. So there's definitely a place for that organic content. You want to make sure that you're keeping up with your audience, that you let them know new things, and that if someone comes to your page, it's not blank and it looks like you're actually in business and putting updates out there. But more likely than not, for the average business, and there are exceptions to this, those things are not going to be driving sales for you. They are really just going to be there for the people who already know about you. And unless your content is really focused on driving them to the next step, which most people aren't doing, it's not going to provide a trackable return on investment. So what I like to really help people understand is, that is a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the lead generation system. That is really just content. It is something that a lot of people are kind of doing out of obligation. And yes, there is a reason to do that for sure, but you can have something much greater than that. You can have something that is showing you what it's doing for you every single day, track those results, allow you to increase those results based on the data and the decisions that you make because of it. And it does require a financial investment. So that's the main difference between organic content and ads. Those ads aren't even showing up on your page automatically. So it's something that's running behind the scenes all the time, day in and day out, whether or not you have someone posting lots and lots of content. So I would just encourage you to stop feeling like so much time and energy and effort goes into that. If you've got somebody that's their full-time job doing nothing but posting organic content, you may want to help them find other ways to support your online marketing, because it simply doesn't have to be a full-time job. It's a great thing to do to be able to plan this out in the beginning of the month, and you can have everything done in a day or two if you've got a good system. And then they don't have to keep focusing on that. They can focus on the things that are really going to help you grow your actual business in terms of revenue, in terms of sales, in terms of profit, all of the things that business owners actually care about. So, Dad, you've got anything before we close, or you want to wrap it up there and hopefully pick it up next time with another equally exciting topic?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the next one we're going to go over some of the key performance indicators, and how, first of all, measuring them, because that doesn't happen very often. Like you said earlier, without the numbers, it's very subjective, and you need to make sure you've got clear, accurate metrics that you're seeing on your dashboard. And then that next step is, what are the action items, which we're going to talk further about, that are going to have an impact on those KPIs that are out there. And you'll see that all fall down to the bottom line. So
I think that sounds great. And I'm just really excited to be able to do these every month. You and I are the sales and marketing arm of the kitchen and bath business in a lot of ways. It's something we're both really passionate about. And as we both discussed at length, there are not a lot of great resources out there for this industry when it comes to actionable items where sales, marketing, and processes are concerned. We don't need to learn more about all the vendors and all the dealers. What we really need is information to grow our businesses, better serve our clients. And of course, there's a place for all of that info. But I'm just glad that you and I are able to provide this to the audience, and can't wait to see this grow. But thanks, everybody, for tuning in to the first Kitchen and Bath Business Brief. It's been great to have you. If you are watching the replay later, let us know that you are here. Drop any comments or questions that you have, and we will see you next time.
Sounds good. Thanks, Allie.